Hello everyone. This video will be a little different than what's come before. I've been talking about various media I'm interested in. So far that's been video games and things like that. But today I'd like to talk about caffeine, and specifically the effects I've noticed it has on me. While I do that, I will be playing footage from Campanella, a game from UFO 50. My full run took about 30 minutes, so you'll only see the first part of that. If you haven't played Campanella or UFO 50, I highly recommend them both and suggest not watching the gameplay here to avoid spoilers if that bothers you. Now, keep in mind that this video is not intended to be a scientific assessment of caffeine. I have not read any studies or books on the subject. The following commentary is really just based on my experience drinking black coffee all the time. The person this will probably help the most is me, seeing as I'm getting my thoughts in good order here for me to consult later. But if this proves interesting or helpful to even a small number of people, I'll be pleased with that result. And another thing up front, I think I'm a pretty caffeine-sensitive person. I sometimes marvel at how well others seem to handle their caffeine, and I imagine it just must have a more muted effect on them than it does for me. That's completely okay. I understand anyone enjoying coffee if for them it has many more advantages than disadvantages. I just want to record my experience so I can reference it later and perhaps others can hear it and compare it to their own. Coffee is, of course, romanticized a lot in artistic media. It's presented as being like a kind of fallback in any social situation. Getting coffee means talking, getting a boost of energy, relaxing or winding down, passing the time. All of these things at the same time and more. People go out of their house just to have coffee somewhere and sit or read. Nothing makes me want coffee more than watching the first couple of seasons of Twin Peaks, where coffee is the lifeblood of the show. People drink it, praise it, pair it with slices of pie, all while reflecting on all of life's little everyday blessings. It makes a strong case for it, and I certainly agree that the taste and the feeling of drinking coffee can be extraordinarily good, but over time I've learned it's probably for the best if I just avoid it. Back when I graduated college and started working full-time at a pretty sedentary desk job, my boss gave me a tour of the office, and I remember he proudly made the point of the company having a nice break room and coffee machine. Up to that point, I had never really given coffee or caffeine a second thought. It was just something I encountered sometimes in sodas or frozen desserts or energy drinks. But the thought of being a working stiff who came in and drank his morning cup of joe was enticing. It felt adult, I suppose. So before long, I had brought in a nice mug and was drinking a cup in the morning like most others in the office. I've always liked things that have an acidic taste, so I took my coffee black. Sometimes I experimented a little with it. I would try having a cup in the morning and a cup in the afternoon. I'd try 2 cups back to back. I'd try sipping 1 cup over a long period of time. Most of the time, my experimenting just made me feel like I was going to jitter away from my desk and out the door. This was my first job, so my responsibilities were pretty light, and I was writing a novel with whatever free time I had, and one day I actually finished the manuscript. I remember being so excited about finishing my first novel and also so hopped up on caffeine that I had to abruptly jump up from my desk and walk several laps around the building, much to the confusion of those who sat near me. I felt like I was going to jump out of my own body. It was exhilarating but also uncomfortable. Later, I tried a caffeine pill to see if its supposed extended release property was preferable to the instant hit of black coffee. I felt sick and anxious for days. Like many other people, I love the idea of coffee. A robust, flavorful drink, bitter, savory, chocolatey, with a pleasant smell, no calories, that's socially acceptable and available in just about any situation, that pairs well with pastries, that warms you when you're cold, that comes in a mug of your choosing, that perks you right up and keeps you awake all day to handle your important business. It's like something out of a fantasy. I also like all of the unique drinks and flavors that can be concocted with caffeine. By itself, caffeine has a bitter flavor that pairs well with sweetness and fizziness, making for some well-rounded sodas and energy drinks. While it's not healthy by any means and not something I do much in adulthood, the kid in me likes being presented with dozens of flavors of some new sugary product and wondering how everything tastes. Hanging out with friends can be a fun time to try some new soda flavor that's never been formulated before and seeing what it's like. Anyway, eventually I came to learn for myself about the downsides of caffeine, which people seldom talk about and that you have to find out for yourself. Sometimes coffee drinkers will refer affectionately to the jitters, but in my experience this can be a terribly uncomfortable feeling to sit with. Sometimes I feel buoyant, as if there is a helium balloon in my chest. Sometimes I feel like I want to go for a fast walk or a jog to burn through whatever restlessness I'm feeling, but not too fast or else I might turn that restlessness into panic. It kind of feels like I'm committing myself to a wilder ride than I need to and challenging myself to keep pace. I've come to see coffee drinking in the office, at least for myself, but probably for many others too, as something like a vice born out of boredom. I think it's all too easy to want to liven up your otherwise dull and miserable day doing soul-sucking office work with a drink that makes you jittery and hyperactive. Sometimes it's not about waking up after a bad night's sleep or giving yourself a boost to finish your work. It's about tweaking out in a socially acceptable way. It's about feeling something undeniable on a daily basis. I've wondered before how many snap business decisions, emails, messages, meeting chime-ins, and so on are the products of caffeinated minds. You might argue that the things you do and say while you're caffeinated are the same things you do and say while you're not, but I'm not so sure. I can certainly attest to doing and saying things while caffeinated that I later see as scatterbrained or bizarre behavior. Coffee's acidity can be difficult on the stomach and throat, and going without it when my body expects it can cause me pretty rough headaches. Even though I've always taken my coffee almost exclusively in the mornings, there's still no telling if I will fully metabolize the caffeine by the time I go to bed, which means I may be up late for no reason. My sleep quality is worse while I'm drinking coffee regularly, I am jumpier and probably more irritable, and I have trouble staying hydrated, which can compound several other issues. One of the worst effects of caffeine on me is a kind of muffling effect it has on my brain. I've always really enjoyed writing, whether that be fictional stories for entertainment or essays and journals to clarify my thoughts. I think it's probably the most fulfilling hobby I practice. From time to time, I am strongly compelled to write something, to work on a new project, or to get something out of my system. The process often involves sitting for long periods of time, getting closer and closer in my head to the point of what I'm doing, trying to find just the right words to convey my thoughts. Finally, seizing upon the right words or phrases, making the choices that feel right, never fails to be satisfying. Well, when I'm drinking coffee regularly, a cup a day or so, my brain often can't sit with any thoughts or ideas for too long. The notion of working on any kind of project that isn't strictly mandated by my full-time job or by life in general becomes unthinkable. I have to be practically chained to my desk to get anything done. So when I try to sit down to write stories or make videos or whatever else, I bang out a few random things in my amped-up confusion, struggle to connect ideas in my mind, and then eventually caffeine crash and go take a nap or something. It pains me to think of how much time I've wasted in total just spinning my wheels like this. There have been weeks at a time where I've felt that I can't follow a single coherent train of thought. When I drink caffeine for the first time in a while, I am filled with a subtle kind of joy, and I feel like I can do just about anything. There have been times before where I embark on a new story, I drink some coffee, and I have a great session where I write thousands of words in one sitting. But more often than not, my sessions are most productive when I'm not caffeinated, when I have the stamina and the level-headedness that come with being my normal self. These slow but steady sessions are not always as flashy or fun as coffee-fueled benders, but they're dependable, and they're almost always what end up getting me to the finish line. I was working on a novel a few years ago, and I was stuck a little more than 2/3 of the way through the plot. Part of me knew I needed to kick caffeine to finish, and once I did, I finally had the clarity I needed to write the rest of the story. And once I began planting myself at my desk as often as I could, it was finished in a couple months. I said that drinking caffeine for the first time in a while can feel joyous, but the returns diminish very quickly. A couple days in, and I'm having a morning cup of coffee just for the hell of it. It's just what gets me up and out the door. Then before I know it, I have to kick it again and go through sometimes a week or more of caffeine headaches and grogginess just to get back to normal. I do think that I have some interesting creative thoughts while drinking caffeine, but they tend to feel random and ephemeral. Really small, non-sequitur ideas that don't really lead anywhere or come together with others to form a bigger picture. They just kind of pop up, and since I'm so jittery anyway, I'm liable to just let them come and go, not really record them or do anything with them. These caffeine thoughts usually feel pretty small-scale and unsatisfying. I view caffeine as insidious because it's been hard in my experience to register the downsides. The upside is immediate. I'm awake and moving around right after drinking my cup of coffee. I feel great. The downsides are more subtle and come later and are therefore hard to associate with the act of drinking coffee. I have a sensitive stomach. I have a headache. I'm falling asleep standing up. I can't fall asleep. I feel nervous. I can't focus. All of these things and more, when noticed and considered in full, make avoiding coffee a no-brainer for me, but it can be hard to take a step back and think about it. There have been a few times when it felt like I was running on nothing but caffeine. I was having too much every day in the form of coffee or energy drinks, and even a little less than usual gave me rough headaches and brain fog. Anytime this has happened, I've just had to commit to kicking it entirely and suffering for a while. While I've done okay with decaf teas, like I said, I think I'm a pretty caffeine-sensitive person generally. So caffeinated tea or soda, or even decaf coffee, sometimes perks me up enough to make me think that maybe having a full cup of caffeinated coffee would be a good idea. I do feel the addictiveness kick in sometimes when I have a little. It's very easy to build coffee drinking momentum, but it can be very difficult to slow down. For this reason, I generally stick to herbal teas now. So anyway, to my future self, if you're thinking about drinking coffee, even if it's just decaf, go for a walk instead or have a sparkling water or something. Drinking coffee is just not as good an idea for you as you think it is. Thanks for listening. I appreciate those of you who stuck around to the end while I talked about something different. My next video might take a little bit to develop and publish. I've got a wealth of notes from my many viewings of Neon Genesis Evangelion, the anime series from 1995. It's my favorite anime series, and I have a lot of thoughts on it that I haven't seen voiced elsewhere, so I've decided to produce my own full series commentary. This will entail my thoughts and observations on each of the series' 26 episodes, the recap and preview films Death and Rebirth, and the feature film finale, The End of Evangelion. So if you're a fan of the original series, I hope you'll stick around for that, although it may be a few weeks before I'm able to put that out. Beyond that, there are many other topics I'd like to talk about in the future. Stay tuned for more videos, and I'll see you later. Thanks.